if I'm a Jaguars fan, I am, shall we say, not very happy about this announcement with the 2 London games. Welcome everybody to JJ9 News, where we talk all things NFL all the time. I'm Jaguar and I representing the 904 from the 602, and today we are talking about the announcement that the NFL just made with the Jaguars playing 2 games in London in 2024, just like they did last year in 2023 when they played the Atlanta Falcons and then the Buffalo Bills. This time, though, it's a bit different because the opponents are the Chicago Bears and the New England Patriots, and folks, this is not good for Jacksonville. This is very, very much not good for Jacksonville at all, because when you look at the Bears and the Patriots, the Jaguars will have no home field advantage whatsoever in either game. You can look at last year and say Jaguars-Falcons was a very good game for the Jaguars to have in London as the home team for that game, because the Falcons don't have a huge fan base in London. They don't have a huge international fan base over there, and the Jags could use the home crowd to their advantage. That game felt like a Jaguars game in terms of the crowd noise, in terms of the crowd being on their side. You're not going to get that this year. You're not going to get that even when the Jaguars have their de facto home game. They chose it completely 100% wrong. So let's start with the Chicago Bears. And again, the Bears for this game in Week 6 taking place at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. The Bears are at least the home team for this game, so it makes sense that the Bears will have a larger crowd than the Jaguars. But the Bears are one of the most popular teams in the United Kingdom. If you look at the stats, they are the 6th most popular team in the UK based on social media impressions and based on some other factors. Historically speaking, they're probably the 2nd most popular team in London besides Miami. The reason for that, why the Bears, the Dolphins, the Niners, the Giants, those teams are really, really popular over there, was because back in the 1980s, that's when a lot of people really started getting into football. That's when those games went overseas. That's when people started watching the NFL in Europe, and people are going to gravitate toward the teams that are really, really good, like the Chicago Bears back in the 1980s, like the Miami Dolphins with Dan Marino. You get the idea. It's almost like when the NFL was growing on television in the 1970s in the United States, why you see so many fans of the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Dallas Cowboys that don't live anywhere near Pittsburgh or Dallas. It's because those teams were good back then, and they just carry their fandom on through generation and generation. So that's why the Bears are popular over there. I have no issues with the Bears game necessarily, even though the Bears are going to have a massive home field advantage, because again, the Bears are the home team. I do think it is unfair to the fans in Chicago that they have to play the Jaguars, because think of it like this. If you are a Jags fan living there, you last saw your team play in Chicago in 2016. And now, because of this, you'll have to wait until 2032, barring anything changing with the schedule in the future years, to see them again. So from 2009 to 2032, you've only seen the Jaguars play in Chicago one time. That is it. That is a long, long time to go. For some perspective, if you started kindergarten in 2009, and that's when you really got into football, and you became a Jags fan in Chicago that year, first off, my condolences. You saw practically no good football in your life. But by the time you have to be off your parents' insurance plan, you will have seen your team visit your city only one time. So I think the NFL kind of screwed up in that way. But again, I get it. I completely understand it. And yes, the Bears are going to have a huge home field advantage there. Nothing you can really do about that. It's the Patriots game that I really want to talk about, because this one ticks me off as a Jaguars fan. This one ticks me off. You would think that the Jaguars would get some benefits for being the team that has played a game in London every year since 2013, minus 2020, obviously due to COVID. You would think they would get some benefits for willingly putting themselves out there to play 2 games in London. You would think they get some benefits to even playing 2 home games in London once every 4 years as part of the new stadium deal. But no, this is how they get rewarded, by having to play the Patriots, as in the 4th most popular team in London, for a game that is a Jaguars home game. The Patriots have a giant fan base in London there, thanks to winning and playing a bunch of games in Europe over the years anyways. So 2009 against Tampa, they played that game, they won that one. 2012 against the Rams, they won that one. The Patriots were actually the first team to ever win multiple games in London. You might say, okay, well, maybe the Patriots don't have an advantage over the Jaguars because they don't know how to play in Europe. They don't know what the adjustment is like. The Jaguars are well prepared. They've done it every year. They know the drill. The Patriots might not. Well, they don't even have that because the advantage of not knowing how to adjust to Europe is gone because the Patriots played in Europe last year in that Germany game against the Indianapolis Colts. They lost that one 10-6. And many players on the roster are back. So they know the drill. The Patriots are actually the first team not named the Jaguars to play back-to-back years in Europe. So Jaguars are kind of getting screwed over there. This was supposed to be a home game for the Jaguars, and now it's a home game for the Patriots where the Jaguars don't have that European advantage, and they don't have the crowd noise advantage because it's going to be nothing but Pats fans and a team that knows the drill and knows a routine to playing in Europe. And it's also really, really unfair to the city of Jacksonville that of the 8 opponents they could have picked, this was the game they picked. And the reason why is, number one, the Patriots have played in Jacksonville just one time since 2013. So your next chance to see the Pats in Duval might not be until 2030. On top of that, the Patriots game always draws massive crowds in Jacksonville. They met in 2018. That was the last time they played in Jacksonville. That game was sold out. That was an electric atmosphere. That was one of the hardest tickets of the entire season for any team that you could get because it was a rematch of the AFC Championship. Miles Jack wasn't down. 2012, the Jags were 2-12. They played the Patriots. Part of the tarps were removed because they drew that many people. The atmosphere was electric. Attendance of over 70,000 fans. And again, mainly Jaguars fans in there. Obviously, there were some Patriots fans, some transplants from the Northeast, but a lot of Jaguars fans. I was at that game much like it was in the 2018 game. Crazy atmosphere. 2006, the game on Christmas Eve, that was sold out. So the last 3 times the Pats came to Jacksonville, the game was sold out or it was oversold. The game was the highest attendance of the year, and it was predominantly filled with Jaguars fans. And I'm not going to say the Jags have attendance issues. That has been beaten to death, and that's not even entirely true. But you can't deny the fact that the last 3 times the Jags have played the Patriots in Jacksonville, there have not been empty seats. And you can look at other opponents that the Jags have played in Jacksonville, and you see lots of empty seats. So you're taking an opponent away from Jacksonville that they rarely face at home, depriving them of what would have been a surefire, huge game from a local revenue standpoint, would have really helped out the city, would have really helped out the team, and you're moving it to a place that would have been sold out no matter who the Jaguars were playing, where the Patriots will have the entire crowd on their side, and the Patriots will have an advantage, or not an advantage, but they won't have a disadvantage versus Jacksonville because, again, they know the drill and know what it takes to play in Europe. They have a routine already. So the Jaguars, this is the worst possible game for the Jaguars to play in London and the worst possible NFC opponent for them to play in London. This is about as bad as it could have gone. You're playing the Chicago Bears, a team with a giant fan base there. The team is going to be all Bears fans. And you're playing the Patriots, a team with a giant international fan base there. That is still well more than the Jaguars fan base internationally. And the stadium's going to be filled with Pats fans, even though it's a Jags home game. And the Jaguars have no advantage that they would have on any other team. I think last year they did a very good job with the international games, and not just because the Jags went 2-0, but because the Jaguars home game against the Falcons, the Jags had that advantage. They picked it well. And then obviously Bills-Jaguars, the Bills had the advantage with the Bills were the home team, so it didn't really matter. But when you have 2 games like this, when you have 2 games where you're not going to have the home field advantage, and when one of them is against a team that always sells out in Jacksonville and really could have helped the city out and the team out from a revenue standpoint at a time when they need it due to the stadium, and when you have the Chicago Bears as in a team that you won't play at Soldier Field or wherever they're going to play the next time you play them, and you're only going to play once in a 24-year stretch in Chicago, that just, it doesn't sit well with me. I'll just put it that way. It doesn't sit well with me. Obviously, we don't know how the games are going to go. The games are taking place 6 months from now, or I should say 5 months from now in October. We'll see what happens with the results of those games, but I'm not crazy about the matchups that the NFL picked for London, especially not the Patriots, especially not New England. I just don't see how that's entirely fair to Jacksonville, the city, and the team because, again, of the attendance issue with the fans filling out that stadium and really making it feel like a Jaguars road game versus, at minimum, a neutral site game in London. It will not feel like that. It's going to feel like a Patriots home game. And that just doesn't seem fair to me at all when you could have picked any other team. But what are your thoughts on the Jaguars London games, playing the Bears and the Patriots? Do you like it? Do you not like it? What do you think the Jags' record will be? What are your thoughts on the news that the Jaguars could potentially play 2 home games in London once every 4 years as part of the new stadium deal they're getting in Jacksonville, part of that renovated stadium, $1.4 billion? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. And that's going to do for this episode of JJ9 News. Be sure you like and subscribe. It helps the channel out a lot. And be sure to check out my main channel, JaguarGamer9, where we talk all things NFL history all the time. Until next time, this is JaguarGamer9 signing off. And as always, go Jags.